They caught her behind the armory, where the lights barely reached and the air smelled of hot dust and gun oil. 3 against 1. They called it a lesson. But here's the thing about striking a Navy SEAL, they don't forget. And Commander Alyssa Ward never needed to. The story of what came next wasn't written in ink or apologies. It was carved into muscle, patience, and precision, the kind that turns silence into a weapon. Camp Iron Ridge. The desert didn't heat up at Camp Iron Ridge, it simply existed that way, dry, shimmering, relentless. By 7 a.m., the asphalt was already alive with waves of mirage. Dust hung in the air like it was trying to escape gravity. 2 flags snapped against steel poles above the barracks, Navy on one, Marines on the other. Both were bleached pale at the edges, both making that metallic clank every few seconds. A tan government pickup rolled into the compound and stopped beside the command post. Commander Alyssa Ward stepped out. She didn't slam the door, she just let it close behind her with quiet finality. Her boots sank into the gravel. For a moment she stood still, scanning the camp like a soldier assessing hostile terrain, each movement deliberate, calculating. Her fatigues were crisp, sleeves rolled to her forearms. A black case file rested beneath one arm, her sidearm strapped high on her hip. No escort. No announcement. Just 38 years of knowing how to walk into a place without asking permission. 2 instructors leaned on the railing of the admin trailer, passing a half-empty water bottle between them. One nudged the other. Is that her? The SEAL liaison? Thought she was out, back injury or something. Alyssa heard them. She didn't turn, didn't even slow. Just kept walking, slipping beneath a sagging shade tarp toward the main office. The briefing. Captain Marcus Lowe waited inside, the kind of man who'd been squared away since birth, 40s, pressed uniform, posture like a ruler. He started to offer a handshake, then changed his mind and gave a short nod instead. Commander Ward. Appreciate you making the trip. Alyssa returned the nod. Schedule said 0700. I'm early. A hint of a smile. We run things sharp out here. Good. He gestured toward the map board behind him, a web of orange and blue marker lines. You're here to observe, not interfere. Clear. I'm here to verify safety protocol and instructor conduct during the next 4 drill phases, she replied. Hand to hand first. My notes go directly to Interbranch Command. Lowe exhaled through his nose. Fine by me. He tapped a roster pin to the wall. Corporal Santos runs the yard. Loud, but his recruits follow him. Miller and Greer back him up. If you're watching anyone, watch Santos. I watch everyone. He studied her a beat, then shrugged. Fair enough. The yard. Outside, the heat had already broken 95. Recruits were forming ranks on the sand lot, tightening straps and adjusting vests. From the center ring, a voice cracked through the air, deep, sharp, commanding. That's Santos, Lowe muttered. Alyssa didn't answer. She watched as the man barked orders, mid-30s, squared jaw, mirrored shades. When he noticed her, he smirked. That the SEAL desk jockey? He called. Heard she was grounded. Alyssa looked at him the way an EOD tech looks at a ticking device, quietly, clinically. No smile. No reply. He held her gaze a second too long, then turned back to his recruits. Lowe cleared his throat. You'll be stationed in Ops Trailer B, evaluation starts at 1400. Copy. One more thing, he added, lowering his voice. Santos and his crew, they run this place like it's their kingdom. Don't expect them to roll over for paperwork. Alyssa met his eyes. I'm not here for them to roll over. I'm here to make sure they're doing their jobs. Lowe nodded slowly. Fair enough. She walked away, her shadow stretching long across the dust. Behind her, Santos's voice rose again, louder now, performance volume. She let him. She'd seen 100 versions of that type, men who thought volume was the same thing as authority, who mistook intimidation for leadership. Where others brought noise, Alyssa Ward brought stillness. Observation. By mid-afternoon, the yard baked under a suspended cloth canopy stretched taut across rust-spotted poles. Beneath it, blue mats shimmered with heat. Recruits paired off, sweat dripping into the sand, waiting for their turn to spar. Alyssa stood at the edge, hands behind her back, expression unreadable. Corporal Santos prowled in front of the line like a lion pacing a cage. No hesitation. If your lungs work, your body follows. His voice cracked through the air. The recruits obeyed, though obedience wasn't the same as technique. Their movements were sloppy, uncoordinated, wild swings born from fear, not form. Alyssa watched their feet. Too many heels off the ground. Breaths out of rhythm. Panic disguised as aggression. On the third pairing, she stepped forward. Stop. The two recruits froze mid-grapple. She knelt between them. You're locking your shoulder before you breathe, she said quietly. That'll get you dropped. Reset. Breathe first, move second. One recruit nodded. The other, barely 19, looked to Santos for approval. Everyone hold position, Santos barked. No one resets unless I say so. The kid hesitated, caught between orders. Alyssa straightened, calm and steady. Corporal, she said evenly, I just corrected his form. He needs to reset before continuing. And I'm telling him to hold. Santos took a step closer, voice rising. This is my yard, Commander. My recruits. My cadence. The air tightened. A few instructors shifted. Alyssa didn't blink. Your yard. My evaluation. If you're teaching improper form, I document it. That's why I'm here. Santos's jaw twitched. After a long second, he forced a smile. Fine. Reset. Happy? She didn't answer, just returned to her position and started writing. Now every recruit on that sand lot knew exactly what kind of tension had entered the air. Cracks in the kingdom. Appreciate the coaching, ma'am, Santos called after a minute, his tone dipped in sarcasm. But we teach real combat here. Breathing patterns don't mean much when someone's already on your back. Alyssa turned to him. Breathing is everything. It's what tells your brain not to panic. Panic gets you killed faster than any punch. Respectfully, he said, this isn't some poolside SEAL assessment. We're not holding our breath in a tank. Miller snickered from across the mat. Must be from the manual, the Controlled Exhale chapter. Greer joined in. Next she'll have us meditate before takedowns. A few recruits laughed nervously, unsure whose side they were supposed to be on. Alyssa kept writing. Her notes weren't just words, they were evidence. Times, names, safety breaches. Every tick of her pen was another line in a ledger none of them knew existed yet. Evening mess. By sunset, Camp Iron Ridge had turned the color of rust. Trays clattered in the mess tent, voices echoing against aluminum tables scuffed by 100 elbows. Alyssa sat alone near the back, her meal untouched beside the open case file. She went line by line through her notes, each infraction circled, each timestamp precise. Laughter swelled at the front of the tent as the instructors entered, still half-dressed from drills. Santos spotted her first. Well, look at that, he said, smirking. Command royalty in the chow line. Miller grabbed a tray. Wonder if she eats regulation portions too. Greer piled potatoes high. The barracks hallway was silent when Commander Alyssa Ward returned. Her quarters were plain, single cot, metal desk, a flickering lamp that hummed whenever the generator coughed. She sat on the edge of the bed, opened her file again, and flipped to the section she'd been waiting for, Phase 3, Controlled Breath Combat Evaluation. Most camps ignored it. Too hard to teach, too easy to fail. But Captain Lowe had signed off on reinstating the full protocol months ago. Every instructor was required to demonstrate breath control mastery before training recruits. Required, not optional. Her eyes traced the clause buried at the bottom of the page. Instructors who fail evaluation will be temporarily suspended from active duty pending remediation. Alyssa closed the file and stared at the ceiling. Outside, she could hear laughter echoing down the walkways, the sound of boots, the clang of a distant door. They thought she was just paperwork, another desk-bound officer collecting signatures. Let them think it. Tomorrow, they'd learn the difference between noise and discipline. The ambush. The compound had gone quiet after lights out. Floodlights hummed near the armory, casting long white corridors across concrete. Alyssa moved through one of them, clipboard tucked under her arm, running an inventory check. Routine. Unremarkable. The steel door closed behind her with a hollow thunk. She heard it before she saw them, boots scuffing concrete, low laughter. 3 silhouettes detached from the shadows, Santos, Miller, and Greer. Evening, Commander, Santos said, that grin already sitting on his face. Didn't peg you for the late shift. Alyssa kept walking. Checking storage. You should be in quarters. Couldn't sleep, Miller muttered. Too much excitement after dinner. Then run laps, she said evenly. Santos sidestepped into her path, close enough that she could smell sweat and caffeine. You keep talking like you outrank someone. Her voice stayed calm. Step aside, Corporal. He didn't move. See, out here we're all about teamwork. Maybe you can show us one of those seal breathing tricks, like when you're pinned and can't move. Greer chuckled. Yeah, how's that work again? Alyssa's jaw tightened. Walk away. Once. Santos leaned closer, voice dropping. You think you can walk in here, write your fancy reports, make us look bad? Out here, respect isn't a signature, it's earned. Then earn it somewhere else, she said. The lights above them buzzed louder, flickering. The air in the corridor thickened. Miller shifted uneasily, but Santos was already moving. A shove, hard, open-handed, sent her back a step. She caught herself, one boot sliding on concrete. Her eyes met his. Last warning, she said quietly. He sneered. Here's mine. The kick came up fast. Boot heel to her stomach, solid, heavy, perfectly placed. The sound wasn't loud, just the thud of impact followed by her sharp exhale. She folded halfway, one knee dropping to the floor, clipboard clattering against the wall. Pain radiated outward like a wave, sharp, then deep, stealing her breath. Her diaphragm spasmed, air refused to come. Vision blurred at the edges. Santos's voice echoed distantly. Still breathing, Commander? She heard Miller curse under his breath. Greer muttered something inaudible. Training took over where thought couldn't. Don't fight the panic. Count. Wait. Reset. 1. 2. 3. Air trickled back in, a thin, fragile stream. 4. 5. Her heartbeat steadied. The pain didn't fade, but it focused her. When she looked up, Santos was breathing hard, the adrenaline already fading. Miller's face was pale. Alyssa rose slowly, pressing one hand against her abdomen. Her voice, when it came, was steady. That was your warning, she said. Santos looked away first. Come on, he muttered. She got the message. Their boots echoed down the hall, laughter trailing behind them like smoke. When it finally went quiet, only the hum of the lights remained. Alyssa stayed still until her breathing leveled. Then she picked up the clipboard, smoothed the creased paper, and walked down the corridor toward the floodlights. Her shadow moved long and straight behind her, small, steady, unbroken. Preparation. The sun hadn't yet cleared the horizon when she entered the locker room. Rows of dented green lockers lined the walls. The mirrors hadn't been cleaned in weeks. The air smelled of disinfectant, sweat, and steel. Alyssa unbuttoned her overshirt. A dark blotch marred her undershirt, low on the left side, where the kick had landed. It wasn't swollen yet, but the bruise had already turned the color of storm clouds. She didn't flinch. She just touched it once, measuring pressure, then pulled out a black compression wrap from her duffel. In smooth, practiced motions, she wound it around her torso, pinning it tight, not to hide the pain, but to control it. The motion sensor flickered, bathing the room in white light. For a second, her reflection stared back, tired eyes, squared shoulders. And then a memory surfaced. Cold water. Coronado. 3 hours into underwater qualification. Hands bound, mask gone, lungs burning. Instructors pushing her under again and again. She could still hear the one voice shouting through the surf. Control the panic, Ward. The moment you lose your breath, you'll spend your life chasing it. She hadn't surfaced until the 3rd minute. Nearly blacked out. But she'd passed. Not because she fought, because she waited. Because patience was the sharpest weapon in her arsenal. Now, in the locker room, she exhaled slowly. Sharp. Focused. Then she buttoned her uniform, clipped her badge, and stepped into the dawn. Phase 3. By 600 hours, Alyssa Ward stood on the training field, clipboard in one hand, regulation binder in the other. The heading read: Phase 3, Breath Control Combat Evaluation. She tested the mats for stability, adjusted the surveillance cameras, and arranged cones in a precise triangle marking the engagement zone. Everything by the book. Everything logged. When the first recruits arrived, bleary-eyed and carrying coffee, she was already ready. At 0700, the compound fell quiet. Recruits lined up in 2 rows. The instructors, Santos, Miller, Greer, took their places at the back, trying to look unimpressed. Alyssa turned to face them, voice clear and calm. Today's exercise, she began, isn't about strength or speed. It's about control. A ripple of confusion moved through the ranks. You'll pair off. Each of you will engage in 1-minute, restricted breath contact drills. On my signal, you exhale, then begin. No talking. No wasted movement. If you break form, the round resets. Santos muttered under his breath, she wants us to fight while holding our breath. Alyssa ignored him. The goal, she continued, is composure under deprivation. Because in the field, you won't always get to breathe before it starts. She looked down at the roster. Instructor pairings first. Corporal Santos, front and center. Murmurs spread through the formation. Santos stepped forward with a smirk. Ladies first, he said quietly. Alyssa stepped onto the mat. Clock starts on contact. They faced each other. Exhale. They did. She moved first, small, precise. A brush of fingers against his sleeve. Testing distance. He didn't react. She touched again, this time his elbow. He grabbed. The operations trailer smelled like paper, coffee, and desert sweat. The air conditioner rattled weakly against the noon heat. Captain Marcus Lowe stood at the center table, a small remote in hand, watching footage on the wall-mounted screen. Frame by frame, the morning played back in silence. Corporal Santos, slammed flat onto the mat. Petty Officer Miller, redirected, trapped, released. Greer, folding at the lightest touch. Lowe hit pause. The image froze as Alyssa Ward adjusted her gear. Her undershirt lifted slightly, revealing the faint bruise just below her ribs, purple, unmistakable, undeniable. Nobody in the room said a word. Santos sat in the corner, arms crossed tight, jaw locked. Miller looked like he wanted to crawl out of his own skin. Greer stared at the floor as if the grain pattern might save him. Finally, Lowe spoke, voice flat as steel. Someone tell me this was a coincidence. No one answered. He turned toward Alyssa. Do you want to file a complaint, Commander? Alyssa's tone was calm, almost quiet. No. I already ran the drill. Lo's eyes narrowed. So that takedown demonstration was what, your idea of paperwork? I followed protocol, she said evenly. Phase 3 requires instructor evaluation under combat conditions. Their signatures are on the sign-off sheet. He said nothing. They made contact first, she added. Unreported. Unprovoked. I chose not to escalate. I chose to teach. For a long moment, only the hum of the projector filled the space. Then Lo exhaled slowly through his nose and nodded once. Understood. He turned to Santos. Don't, he said before the corporal could open his mouth. Not one word. Santos shut his jaw hard enough to click teeth. Lo looked back at the frozen screen, at that single frame of bruise and dust and silence. Then he spoke quietly, each word precise. Corporal Santos. Petty Officers Miller and Greer. Effective immediately, you are suspended from all instructional duties pending formal review. The footage will be forwarded to command. No one protested. Even Santos didn't find his voice this time. Lo shifted his attention to Alyssa, and for the first time since she'd arrived, his expression softened, just slightly. You could have dragged this through every channel. Instead, you turned it into a lesson they'll never forget. Alyssa said nothing. Lo crossed his arms. You held your breath longer than I would have. She allowed herself the faintest smile. I've had practice. He nodded. Get some rest, Commander. You've earned it. She gathered her clipboard, saluted, and left the trailer without a backward glance. The yard. Outside, the sun had dropped to a low amber glow. Camp Iron Ridge was quieter than she'd ever heard it. The flag above the barracks snapped softly against the evening wind. The mats from that morning still lay half-rolled in the center of the sand lot, half in shadow, half catching the orange light. No one had moved them. Clusters of recruits lingered nearby, pretending to check their gear, too aware of what they'd witnessed to speak casually. Did you see how she moved? One whispered. Like she knew exactly what they'd do before they did it. Another shook her head. No. She didn't know. She just didn't flinch. Instructors sat apart near the motor pool, quiet for once. Corporal Vega, one of the few who hadn't sided with Santos, took a long drink from her canteen. I've been here 6 months, she said softly. Watched him run this place like a private kingdom. Nobody ever checked him. Petty Officer Hayes nodded. She didn't check him with rank. She checked him with discipline. That's what makes it sting. Another young instructor spoke up, hesitant. You think command will actually do something? Hayes glanced toward the operations trailer where the lights still glowed. Lo saw the footage. And Carter, he caught himself, corrected, Ward documented every step. There's nothing to debate. They hung themselves. Vega stared at the mats. You ever seen someone fight like that? Yeah, Hayes said quietly. Once. In a pool in Coronado. Same silence, same patience. Scariest thing I've ever seen. Reflection. Commander Ward walked past the clusters without speaking. She carried a fresh roll of gauze under one arm. A young recruit, barely 20, nerves written all over him, stepped forward as she passed. Ma'am? She paused, turned slightly. He swallowed hard. Can I ask you something? Ask. He glanced toward her ribs, then back up. How'd you stay calm after what happened? Alyssa studied him for a moment, then replied simply. Because losing your temper hurts longer than losing your air. The recruit didn't nod, he just understood. Alyssa continued toward the equipment shed. Inside, the air was cooler, heavy with the smell of gun oil and canvas. She set down the gauze, unbuttoned her jacket, and unwound the compression wrap. The bruise had darkened, purple fading to black around the edges. She pressed lightly against it, testing. It hurt, but not enough to stop her. She began rewrapping the bandage, steady, even, precise. Outside, boots scuffed the gravel. The flag was lowered. Voices faded into night. She didn't need apologies. She didn't need an audience. The silence that followed was its own kind of recognition. Where others saw quiet, she saw control. And control, in her world, was victory. Epilogue. The next morning, the mat was gone. The yard spotless. A new notice was posted outside the admin trailer. All instructors are required to complete remedial breath control certification. Mandatory. Effective immediately. No one joked about it. Recruits trained differently that week, slower, more deliberate, breathing in rhythm the way she'd shown them. Santos's name was never mentioned again, but everyone remembered the look on his face when he hit the mat. By dusk, as the sun bled over the desert ridgeline, the compound felt changed. Not louder. Not prouder. Just sharper. Commander Alyssa Ward walked the perimeter one last time, boots whispering across the sand. Above her, the flag snapped once in the evening wind. The same sound it always made, but somehow, it felt like respect. Because the quietest person in the room had already won.